So I'm going to do a trailer tutorial today based not on the fact that I'm an experienced or seasoned trailer composer, but that I have written the music to loads of trailers, specifically for sample libraries, both with Spitfire and with Crow Hill. And we've just launched this new library, so I thought it would be fun to create an epic trailer just with a cello. So we started with the picture. We sent a team out to Las Vegas when Tina was performing with Hans Zimmer out there recently. They got some pictures of some rock. They did some studio footage and some behind the scenes footage. And the whole thing really cuts together fantastically well. So what the editor did, Jack, is he selected a couple of pieces of music, an intro, a middle section, and then he didn't really give us an outro, as you'll see. You'll see that the music carries on where we require a degree of dynamism. So there's just a couple of bits of music jammed together. This is when I kiss goodbye to my monetization for this video. So what it's doing right is it's working with the picture, or rather the picture's working with the music really, really well. And I know that if I do a tempo map that's really close to the temp, a lot of the heavy lifting of hitting the cuts is going to be done for me. So that's really helpful. However, it's not quite hitting every mark. If we have a look at these two big Brahms, that's good. The second one is late by, I don't know, maybe as much as 5 or 6 frames. Whilst I'll follow the tempo, I need to be wary of that particular moment. At the very end, we are missing a bit of narrative, and that is a build towards a payoff of some sort, and we're not getting that at all. The track is just continuing through. The first thing I did was click to the track. Now, the beginning is very almost arrhythmic, so I just got a sense of movement, not only with the music, but with the picture. You'll see that I put a little cheeky thing in here. What's key, though, and this is the tempo map. I was surprised to hear that they hadn't played that to click, considering the era we're talking about. And in fact, there are parts of that that are really kind of loose. And again, that made me nervous as to, well, with something that's going to be highly sequenced, is that just going to sound wrong, or is it going to make it sound more interesting? So we'll have a listen. I think many of you will think that, okay, well, the situation that I'm presenting is atypical of how you would deal with a trailer, in the sense that I kind of briefed the way that the picture was going to work and the way the music was going to work, and then it was edited to the temp music. Well, you may be surprised to hear what kind of way round things go with trailer music. And I was joined recently on our weekly podcast by a gentleman just turned up out of the blue, who I've worked with before out in LA, called Roman, who works at one of the most successful trailer music companies in the world. Can you explain what Audio Machine is?
Yeah, we're kind of the number one boutique trailer music house, and yeah, that's what we did from Paul Dinlatier, who founded it back in the 2000s, and these days we've got our in-house, in-person studio, and trying to use the Crow Hill Perk libraries and stuff like that on. Get them in some placements.
Well, it's fortuitous that you joined us today, because we've launched this competition where people have to rescore a trailer. Do you have any top tips, speaking as someone who's been doing top tier trailers yourself?
People just don't realize when you think it's big enough, or when you think it's hitting, it's not. They don't realize the things you got to do in the trailer music, that everything that's counterintuitive to our mixing training, or those of us that maybe came up through the old guard of way of mixing film or scores or anything like that. It's so different, and the things you would do seem really stupid, but if they work, they're not stupid. So when your drums aren't hitting, just throw them through parallel saturation and parallel compression. Put 5 saturators on it and multi-band sidechain compress every frequency possible, so that it's doing this dance with stuff. It's just, you got to make room where there's no room. I'm sure everyone in this meeting and joining probably knows the React form, right? That's a common thing for people who are in ad and promo and trailer. You've got your intro, you got edit point, you've got act 1, edit point, you've got act 2, edit point, you've got act 3, and maybe a bunch of cuts and stops, and depending on what genre of trailer. But absolutely, you want to make sure that the difference in your soft low points versus your back end, that like high octane act 3, is just so massive that it grabs the attention, hits, and it feels like you've gone on this journey, right? You're telling a narrative. You're ultimately selling the product, right? If there's no trailer music, it's infinitely less exciting. So that it's those starts and stops, right, that we'll call it, and that editors look for, and that really, it give you those moments, right? You have your sound design, your ear candy moments, right? Maybe the music stops in the middle of a phrase, and you've got a downer, or you've got this really interesting like panned riser or something, or even if it's just your signature sound, or like if it's if it's cello, if it's just, oh, actually now it's up front, right in your face, dry, all in the clear, nothing else happening. You just have this choppy motion, right? That just editors are foaming at the mouth to cut to. The amount of mute automation or reverb automation in one of our average trailer sessions is immense, right? Because you need to do that. You need those hard outs. You need to create those moments of just differing level of not just volume, but intensity, musically, whatever it is. So you just have to go so microscopically exact with that stuff to create the excitement, and those edit points really is what it is. It's all about.
We'll return back to Roman's contributions in a sec. I really recommend you dialing in or catching up with the weekly podcast. We have, as you saw from the screen, also a Google Meet which anyone can dial into, and we basically sit around doing a nerdy chat, a blether, but picking up along the way some really useful nuggets of information. Anyway, back to this. So what's great about Tina's library, and I'm not going to go into a massively long walkthrough, that's available in the video description down below if you're interested in having a look at this library. But basically we have 2 types of sound. We have articulations, so standard things like longs, shorts, spiccatos, all full of character, full of Tina. And then we've got these textures, which are not only Tina's very inventive way of playing her, in this case, electric cello, but also the much in demand and absolute genius sound design of Steve Mazzaro, who partnered with Tina on this project. If drones are your thing, there's plenty of those in this. So let's go through some of these. First with something that is a sul ponticello effect. So I'm building that towards this climax here before the music jumps in. And we've got these harmonic drones. It's really important to make sure you have those upper harmonics if you're going to do a low subby drone. If it's something that's very much subtractive, and by subtractive I mean if, say, it was a full synthesized sound, but you put a filter on it so it's just like that, it's just not going to pick up on certain devices. So it's something to be very mindful of when doing low stuff. Got another drone here, and this is where we got a bit of the bottom end coming in. Then we've got these amazing melodic phrases, of which Tina's done a bunch. Just absolutely stunning. And you'll notice there wasn't a decay when I pressed stop there. Everything that you're hearing is not, I wouldn't say baked in, but it's part of the soundscape, of which if you go to here, so we've got melodic phrases. If you go here, you can actually mix the various different elements. So those low choral sounds, you can totally duck those out and leave just Tina over the top, along with a degree of mayhem, which is the distortion that you hear applied to the sound. Again, this isn't a walkthrough. If you want a more detailed description of what's going on here, video linked below. So let's go to the next bit. Yeah, so you'll see I've got a second melodic phrase here. This is me being lazy, not just simply automating. Well, I guess I didn't want to automate up the tail of that. So that's my excuse anyway. And you'll see that there's a 2 dB difference between the two. And I just think I needed it just to poke through just that little bit more. That's when all the drones are coming to fruition. We've got this amazing octave drop here. No plugins applied to that, just simply messed around in the box with that, just a degree of volume automation. I wasn't happy with the drones I'd already selected, so added more. So I'm controlling that with both expression and modulation. So we're getting a timbral change as we get louder, and also the volume change with expression. And then this one. Play without there. This is the first one that I put lots of stuff on. So often I see people applying like sub-bass synthesizers to stuff that needs subs. So often the sound will have it in, and that's what I've picked out here. So let's just have a listen to that without the EQ. You can kind of feel it there. Hits of the body of the cello. It's an electric cello and isn't a Stradivarius, so Tina doesn't treat it as well as I imagine she would a Stradivarius. And again, just a little bit of boost on the bottom end there. Now, if I play this drone here, loads of bottom end in there, but the bottom end doesn't really kick in until there. So what I've actually done is automated like a synth hit, if you will, like a stab, by triggering the sound earlier so that sub bass is in, and then doing a nice big, very sudden impact in with volume automation. And with the body taps. Now, this is where I kind of, one of the few times I actually messed around with Tina's stuff. So let's hear it before and after. So it's that body tap sound again. Down. Oh, it's a great sound. And then I didn't want the top end, so rolled that off, boosted the bottom. And it gives me a low thump. I'm going to avoid this audio for a minute because that's very much part of the final process there. Let's take this off and then just quickly go through the stuff here. So basically, I thought I'd have a bit of a bosh at using these measured trems with Tina. A bit of a delay there that's tempo synced with just a couple of repeats on it. And what was really interesting is I played it in, and then when it came to this area of troublesomeness here and that weird slowing down that Slipknot did and stuff, I was actually quite surprised by the results. It was one of those happy accidents. So I thought that was really interesting. Compressed it to buggery. So that cha-cha is really biting there. Made it even more stereo. Slight kind of panning effect there. Boosted the chug. And then finally, I put a bit of tremolo on to give it a slightly more robotic energy to it, almost like forcing a compression. Tremolo, quite a strict, it's not curved. It's not quite gating, because all we're messing around with here is, 22% of the level. But let's hear it with and without. Just makes it a bit more bitey on reflection. I should have stuck that tremolo before the compressor. And then just wanted to bring out a few accents with spiccato. But I actually added a bit of reverb in, which sounds counterintuitive. You've got to throw everything at it if you've got quite a lot going on in a track and you want things to sound like within that track they're being epic. So that's got way more reverb than I would put on it in isolation. So this is a body tap, but then granular synthesizer on board. And I don't know how it works. It just makes it sound like you've put a lion on it. I think it felt to me it was a semitone out or just under a semitone out, so I just tuned it up a bit. That's a bit sharp now. All adds to the fun of the fair. So glass tremolo, these sounds are amazing. And this is for that last melodic bit at the end. Everything's getting quite fat and chuggy at this point. So I'm really boosting the only space that's left, and that's at the very top end there. And then we've got these siren calls. And then I took some pizzicato. This is a highly processed signal. I'm doing like an enforced compression with the automation. Let's just have a listen without. Yeah, so I'm just taking that sustain off along with some more body taps. And then I did cheat, I'm afraid to say. I added a little something that isn't in the library, and that's a sine wave, but figured that most people can get their hands on one of those, and just wanted to give it that 808 stuff at the bottom end. And then whacked it in a distortion unit just to make sure that we had some love for people on iPhones. So that's the middle section, and really after that point we're just doing it's more of the same, using the same tools to create our payoff. Another one of those big synthy stabby things. And one of them. Now, let's just run that down and hear why that wasn't the end of the story, and why, and I was pleased to hear Roman talk about this on the podcast.
I think it permeates in everything, because the doors are blasted wide open to just be as creative as possible and see what sticks. That's what it's about. I mean, in production music in general, that's what it's about, right? Just keep writing and see what sticks, what happens, and what if you're the trendsetter or where the trend goes, what you can do with that. But it is really interesting. Yeah, you just throw everything out the window, and just really be as creative and as innovative as you possibly can, right? But you just don't know how that's gonna get used exactly in the finished product. I think I just did. I didn't just do, but the trailer that came out for Companion. That's a customized track that I had done, of an Audio Machine track that I did with my wife, actually. But that was, they had the stems from another pitch and used it for this trailer. And so it's really cool that they've clearly edited in mind and used these stems, used this track for their narrative in a way that I wouldn't have even predicted or known, because I wasn't involved with that process.
If I was to say something that really delineates between different workflows, will be actually the hierarchies of the different parts of the industry that we work in. It's why television is a very different experience to film, where film, the directors are king, where television is concerned, the producers, the showrunners, and the broadcasters are king. And I imagine with trailers, often the director's not even in the picture. It'll be very much to do with the marketing department of the film company. With computer games, it's like it's totally outsourced. I mean, what's really interesting about computer games is dialogue is often outsourced, and the director won't be present for that. So I think that we get this trickle down that formulates these different workflows and different methodologies of working based on the hierarchy that you're working with, who's paying the bills and who's okaying stuff.
In the film and TV world, as someone myself who has done plenty of stuff in that, and my main thing is the trailer music, it's just, it's wild to see the difference. Like you said, who is really king? Who are you answering to? Who is making that final call? And who are you trying to appease with what you're actually providing? And are you trying to appease anyone at all? Because in both extremes, you have, you could have like 4 or 5 playbacks with different people on the post-production side, and nothing gets approved for film or TV. On the trailer side, it's like, do I like this track? Great, that's it. These philosophies of the three layers or 3 elements. I mean, like you said, Prokofiev, Tchaikovsky, they all do it, right? You think of, it sounds so massive and huge and beautiful and complex. And if you study the score, you see, actually every choir of the orchestra is just doing the same thing in different inversions. There's like 3 different things happening. Same with if you're doing like a big epic track with 150, tracks or 200. Sometimes I have that in the trailer world if it's like orchestra plus hybrid, like all this stuff. Other times, like Christian just said, like my tracks are 15 tracks, but it's a big trailer track. It's because everything has room and every sound has been chosen intentionally with what frequency it occupies. Oh, this is my sub, this is my bass, this is my punch in the 200 hertz. Everything is so meticulously chosen that you don't need tons of elements. And then sometimes you need all those elements and you got to do the cleanup, right? You got to do the EQing, subtractive EQ, and like I mentioned, the multi-band sidechain compression. If you've got Pro MB, just put that on every track and find which tracks need, like, this is being sidechained to the bass. This bass is being sidechained to the hits. This hits is being sidechained to the strings. And so you just get this dance of like, you're not losing anything in the frequency spectrum. Actually, the strings are by themselves. You get this fat sound. But once everything else is in, you see your sidechain compressor doing this like crazy thing, and now there's room.
We throw a lot of caution to the wind and create dynamic effects through perverting the course of nature, i.e., put masses of reverb on something, and then when you stop playing that thing, the reverb stops with it, whereas in real life it would carry on. And I'll show you why I did that in one moment, but let's just check out how that sounded. Right, so what I did, and you'll see why these have been color-coded into 3 different colors, is I bounced these out individually, because if you listen to this bit here, it's really smudgy, because basically you've got all of this epicness, but all of what creates that epicness, the big reverbs and the delays, they continue over this stuff. And I think I want this to feel like the loudest thing in the known universe. And if this is chugging away and we can still hear some echo boxes ringing happily on, this then feels underwhelming. So there's 2 things that will happen here is by bringing that to a very harsh stop, it'll give a kind of suck, which will create that flash, that startle. It'll make the switch, the sudden smash cut, sound very, very different, of a different world. But also, it'll make you psychologically think that this has totally overwhelmed that. That's the thinking anyway. The only thing I think it lacked was a bit of a suck at the end there. So I just took a bit of the whole mix, I think from this bit here, and reversed it, time stretched it. Might put a bit of flanger on it too. And again, that gives you that sucking effect there, exacerbated by the volume automation. And this is what's so fun about short form, is your ability to play stuff in live and then to reprint it as audio and chop it up and time stretch it and all of that kind of fun stuff. I'm now listening back to it, and I'd love to spend another day on it. There's so much I would change. There's that weird hit that happens before the cut for no reason. I'd love to have added a 32 note into that fast section, just at least one. But that's not the world we live in. There was a delivery date that was fixed. There was a sample library to get out there, and this was the best light I could put it in the time I was given. Everything sounds great, But I think there's some artistic decisions that I could have made that would have been better with a bit more time. But that's something that we don't have in our profession, which is why we're giving you the opportunity to score this trailer yourself. You don't have to own this library. It can be with any company's sound library or libraries that you like. All I'd say is try and approach it with your own voice. Try and make it something interesting with quite a dynamic set of pictures you have to work with. All of the details, the T&Cs and the link to how you can download the trailer so you can work to it yourself, all linked in the video description down below, along with closing date, all of that kind of stuff. And as I said, I think the first 3 prize winners get everything we're going to release over the next 12 months after this release, after Tina, so there might be something coming up this month. And the first prize, you'll win an hour worth of remote session time with Tina, and she's a very, very in-demand AAA list go-to session musician who has taken the cello into new realms and has created a real storm, has conquered Hollywood with it. So it's your opportunity to get a bit of that royalty, that majesty and that force of nature in on your music. I really hope the tutorial's been of help. As I say, I'm not a seasoned trailer composer, but I've written quite a lot of trailers for sound libraries over the years. So I hope that my insight has helped you, whether you're experienced or not. Now, if you have questions about this, now's the prime opportunity to pop over, and again, that'll be linked in the video description as well, to the live section of our site to set a reminder for this week's podcast. Every Thursday, 7 o'clock in the evening in Britain, every Thursday, without fail, having a natter. Actually, I did fail. I had flu the other day and completely blew everyone out. But it's just a wonderful conversation. Like-minded people aren't fazed by talking to people of different levels, of different disciplines, all of that kind of stuff, which is why I've referred to it as a fellowship, the Fellowship of the Ring Pool. Details down below. Thanks so much for staying to the end. And as I said before, if you're interested in checking out more about Tina's library, video description down below too.